Hello everyone and welcome to a kind of unusual video for me to make. Not only is this not Elden Ring or another Souls game, it's Path of Exile, and I'm doing live commentary. This is completely crazy. Anyway, this is a sort of impromptu build guide for an Ice Strike, Flicker Strike, just a general monk build. I'm using tons and tons of different skills, and unfortunately it's quite expensive, but it has been maximally fun. I think the build is ridiculously fun to run maps with, as long as you understand that it's not the most durable, it's not the easiest to play, perhaps, nor is it going to push the pinnacle boss experience for you that much. And for this video, I'm simply going to go over the passive tree, the skill gems, the items, and what I think about the build, do I recommend it, and what I think about the character in general. The quarterstaff is quite insane. This is very, very, very expensive. I managed to snag this off somebody who just didn't want it for 15 exalted, which absolutely makes no sense, but I got very lucky. The thing you want to be going for is gain life per enemy killed. That's going to be your kind of source of tankiness and survivability, because the other gear is not going to give you much defense. And then attack speed and elemental damage with attacks, along with physical, is of course very important. So more damage, more gooder, basically. Rings are both just damage buffs and attribute stacking, because this build is also quite hungry with attributes, which is why I also have a pretty crazy amulet that's giving me around, if I can quickly calculate that, 43 plus 20, that's 63 strength from just this one amulet, which, yeah, you're going to need it, because the unique items that we're using is the Deepest Tower and the Coming Calamity Heroic Armor. And the entire point of the build is to use triple heralds. So this, once you overkill enemies, explodes them. This, when you freeze them, shatters them. And this calls down lightning bolts on shocked enemies when they die. And it also gives you a bunch of elemental resistance, but when it comes to actual defense stats, armor is just armor, it's not good, and evasion rating is quite low. And with the helmet, it's also armor and energy shield, which are both not only low, but armor, again, is just kind of bad. So that's the idea for the chest piece, is that you get triple heralds, and you couple it with Deepest Tower so that enemies in your presence count as being on low life. And here you can see that the presence aura is, if I can pin it like this, it's really not that big, but you also need to keep in mind that you are a melee build. You're going to be hitting enemies with melee damage. So this damage bonus that we get from the passive tree and this effect is always going to be up. And if we're going to be using some projectile skills, some ranged skills, their damage is already so high that it's not even needed, really. For the boots, just a bunch of evasion, just a bunch of movement speed, and some resistances. If you can get health on all of your gear, even rings, even amulet, that would be really good. For the chest piece, I'm using soul cores for increased maximum life, because I managed to get really high resistances with my other pieces of gear, and the gloves are also really important for attack speed. Basically, every piece of gear you just want to maximize resistances, health, and attack speed and damage, which makes them really, really, really expensive, of course. Now, main skill is Ice Strike and then Flicker Strike. Ice Strike I have set up with Execute for even more damage against enemies that are on low life, more weapon elemental damage, gaining more cold damage, and gaining cold damage after freezing enemies, which happens very, very often, and attack speed. So right now the DPS is sitting at 50,000. This is going to go up to 150,000 after all of our buffs. If not more, actually. I've had a tough time trying to see it in the middle of combat, of course. It's quite hard to see it. But the buffs that you use on this build just make it an absolute cannon. And this is also not taking into account the buffs from low life effects, which you'll see later that from the passive tree, it's absolutely massive. So the 50,000 here, I don't know what it would actually be in practice, but it's much, much higher than that. Right, and for Flicker Strike, I only have it linked to 4 slots at the moment, basically because I've just been really having fun with it, and I haven't really taken it seriously. I could build it to be better, but I kind of don't even need to. It's been really, really strong along with the other buffs, and Ice Strike is still the main skill that you're going to be using on this character. Anyhow, for Flicker Strike and for all of these skills, really, you want to have their quality be at maximum. So get some Gem Cutter Prisms. Especially for Flicker Strike, because it gives you a chance to not remove charges on use. And Perpetual Charge, Innervate, Elemental Focus, and Close Combat for just damage, 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 and charge usage. Falling Thunder is another skill that's just used when there's just a bunch of enemies running at you and you have your charges up, you have all of your buffs up, and even here it's just a bunch of damage buffs. Ambrosia is really, really nice because it's a skill that you use once in a while. So you're not going to be draining your mana flask with this instantly. You're going to be getting these charges back to your mana flask simply by killing enemies, and once you use it again, it's very, very minimal. So just really good thing to place on Falling Thunder. Combo finisher for more damage. It also requires 5 combo to use, which makes it a bit more clunky, but it also is a lot more damage. And some just plus levels to lightning skills. Tempest Bell, I should really respec and put some more stuff in here. It's basically a bossing skill, just some extra damage, and bossing is actually quite nice because the freezing that you do on bosses is also really, really high. So Tempest Bell is just some extra damage, just some AoE, area of effect, area damage, stuff like that. This I should really try and respec, but it's been working out so far pretty easily. It's just with Expanse, Concentrated Effect, and Reach. Charge Staff is one of our buffs, which, again, I should 4-link this, but again, it's been working wonderfully. More skill effect duration, more area of effect. I'm not even really sure if this works. And more chance to shock. The charge staff, you don't even... I don't feel like you even need a lot of stuff here because it's just a lot of extra damage. It is a lot of damage that you get from this. So the skill rotation basically goes ice striking, getting charges, using this first, getting more charges, and then using it with other skills. Storm Wave I added only recently because it's a bit more of a ranged skill. It helps sometimes, especially when buffed. I mean, even unbuffed, the DPS is already up to 32,000, which is really, really nice. with mobility, bludgeon, and deliberation. Also, I kind of... these are kind of working against each other, but it also just kind of... yeah. Like I said, some of these I should really look into again, but it's been working out very well. I haven't had a problem with it. And then the Spirit Gems Combat Frenzy is our way of getting charges. Very, very, very important that you get quality on this as well. And then just Perfusion for chance to grant additional charges, and Clarity for more mana regen. And then Cast on Freeze for Voltaic Mark. This is really, really good because it procs very, very often. It doesn't require a lot of energy, and the AoE is quite massive. You just blow things up constantly. Now, I could probably play something else here as well, but I've been working fine with Impetus and Energy Retention. And I am currently level 89. This is probably the point where, I mean, I won't be stopping. I'm having a lot of fun with the character, but about here is where the skill tree, the passive tree, feels really solid. There's not a lot of stuff left to get, especially because the last levels are very, very slow and hard to get. But with the last 11 levels, I would definitely maybe go up here and for even more damage. Or try and scale Evasion and Energy Shield with these pretty big nodes as well. Just for some minor extra survivability. So basically at the start, it's just skill speed, damage, some stats, skill speed, mana regen. Here, these are actually quite nice to have if you don't have high mana regen, but I have managed to build it up quite nicely for myself, so I don't need them anymore. Here we branch off into a couple different locations. I gain 5% of damage as extra cold and increased freeze buildup, which works really, really, really nicely. Here is the first jewel socket with just attack speed, damage with quarterstaves, all that kind of stuff. And then Killer Instinct for more damage when on full life. And here, really, really important that you get Resonance, because Combat Frenzy gives you Frenzy charges, and you can't really use Frenzy charges on Monk, so you have to have them be turned into power charges, which this lets you do, which is very, very important. It's basically the only way to play power charges effectively, in my opinion. And here we go down for more attack damage, more elemental damage, and chances to freeze, and chances to shock. More damage, more elemental damage, movement speed and evasion rating. This node is quite massive, just like this node and this node. So if you're more looking for survivability and less damage, I've pathed here myself as well before. So I've taken these few nodes and then this entire straightaway right here. And in terms of evasion, I'm sitting at 57%, and taking these I think buffed me up to like 70%, which was decent. It was good. But I was losing out on damage, and I kind of just made the choice for myself that I would just be a glass cannon and have fun with it. So here's another jewel socket, just more damage, more attack speed. Here, really big attack nodes. Here, really, really good movement speed and skill speeds nodes. Here we path down to the first low life damage nodes, which is quite huge. Herald skills, area of effect and damage, also very good. Movement speed, attack speed after you've killed recently, very good. And a jewel socket. And this over here comes from a unique jewel that latches onto Unwavering Stance. I have it locked in over here. from nothing diamond. This is also quite expensive. It's about 2 or 3 divine orbs at the moment, I think. And it allows me to get this node right here. It also allows me to get these two, which I would probably get next if I'm going to level up more. But this one is just absolutely massive because it's 120% increased damage. And then coming down here and continuing up here, Coming Calamity, simply because, well, it just kind of works with the naming scheme already, but also because it is a massive buff. These 3 nodes, 12%, 12%, and then 50 for everything is just massive. Here we get, after this, basically the only evasion nodes on the tree, because we need the increased dexterity, and it's also 30% evasion rating. Like I said, this build is quite hungry for attributes, because you need 86 strength, you need a lot of dex, a lot of int for the skill gems, and the cast on freeze, all that type of stuff. It's quite unfortunate, and it's quite hard to build, but like I said, it's a quite expensive build. I've used basically all of my currency on this league on this single character now, and yeah. Here we get the upper nodes of the quarterstaff tree. This would also be quite good, but it's also just after these critical hit chance nodes, which we are not building. Our critical hit chance is very, very low, so I feel like this would be a waste because we're not building it otherwise. So this is just some attack speed, some freeze build-up, some defenses, and all kinds of good stuff. And then finally here, we go up and get 2 maximum power charges. Basically, the passive tree, the Ascendancy passive tree at the moment is just extra damage. And Unbound Avatar is just complete insanity. It's just a 40% buff, which just allows you to just out-damage things. Whoop. Out-damage things so hard that it becomes a defensive tool after you just stack so much damage that the enemies don't have enough time to withstand your attacks. So I have, like I said, 11 points left to go. I'm not sure how high I'll be able to climb, but if I were to level more, I would probably get more attack speed. Probably get these 2 nodes for just a bit more survivability, and maybe maybe get these ones here. If you're feeling that the presence area of effect is really small, there's also these 2 nodes right here, along with a attack node. So it's more damage, more presence area of effect. It's quite decent, but I haven't felt the need for it. Right, with all that being said, I hope you enjoy the build, if you have the money to build it. I would definitely say that it is possible to build without such insane investment, but the higher you go in maps, the more currency you're gonna need. At some point, the damage of monsters and all that type of stuff just gets to a point where you need to be out-damaging them faster and faster, and that means just getting better and better gear. The 2 items that basically make this entire build, you can get them combined for around 3 to 4 divines at the moment. And that's not too bad, I think. So if you want to think of this build as a 3 divine budget just because of these items, that's fine. But your weapon also does matter quite a bit. The just amount of currency I've used on this build comes from the fact that every single piece of gear that I have is just quite insane at this point. I'm capped out on resistances except lightning and chaos, But even this is completely fine, because the damage just is quite ridiculous once you buff yourself and get going. So I would definitely recommend it, but only if you understand that it's a glass cannon, you understand that it's quite expensive, and that you want to have fun more than anything, instead of objectively pushing the end game as hard as you can. This build will never really be as effective on something like Arbiter of Ash or something, because the Heralds, they don't do anything on bosses. That's what you need to also realize, is that this is a mapping build. This isn't a bossing build. It can kill bosses. It can, because of spell, because of so much damage that you have. Like you saw in the beginning of the video, you can do millions and millions of damage against bosses as well. But first and foremost, just because of these effects on the chest piece and your like limited survivability, I would say, it is first and foremost a mapping build. And that's what I would recommend it for, and that's what I've been having a ton of fun with. And that's about it, I think. I've been loving the game. I'm becoming more and more addicted. I might make more videos, possibly, I don't know. I'm definitely looking forward to how the game progresses, how it builds up, and the full release sometime later this year or next year. We'll have to see. But for now, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the build. Thank you.